introduced to a steamy rom-com where the main guy's ass is practically a third-wheel character in itself, most people would save their time and money and not even glance at it twice. I, however, am known to make the grave mistake of going into books blind and thinking, it can't be that bad. My punishment is now to go through one of the worst smutty sports romance books out there. Fangirl Down begins with us meeting Wells and Josephine, and the title is about to make a lot of sense. Wells is a bad boy golfer who hasn't been in form for 2 years. He's depressed and self-destructive. If you've seen a golfer, the idea of a bad boy and golfer do not belong in the same sentence, but bear with me please, we're definitely going into fiction territory for this one.
So, Wells is depressed and self-destructive,
and in comes Josephine, who is his biggest fan. And sadly, the only support system he has. When things happen, Josephine finds herself getting employed by the guy she's always admired. So we're expected to believe that not only is this a broody and sexy golfer, he's also broken to the point where he would hire a crazy stalker fan. Yep. Okay, now let's read the wildest Goodreads review I could find because this quickly descends into madness to a degree that you might need to take a knee. As Christina puts it, this book can be summarized by Manic Pixie Dream Girl saves a toxic pro golfer with the power of her. What else could you possibly want from me? Now you're understanding why I picked this book, aren't you? If this wasn't a library book, I would have taken my 9-iron to it. I hated this stupid book so much. Hated it. I tried to give Tessa, the author, one more chance after her egregious insult to Canadians, hockey romance, but nope, I am done. This book was gross, like really gross, and I'm not talking about the ass eating. I mostly skipped that scene. This is not going to be the first time you're going to hear about this man's behind, so get ready and at the very least, put the volume down on this video. But I can pinky promise you that you will be entertained. Our MMC, Wells, was extremely toxic and a huge red flag. To be fair, he is a pro athlete. Pro athletes of any kind are in a ick list for me. If you've been around pro athletes, you will understand why that is. He was not a grump. He was a violent alcoholic with suicidal ideation.
There's no shame in addiction or mental health representation. I welcome it, but this was not that.
He was presented in the narrative as a grump, not as someone needing help, and he never got any help beyond the shrinking by the heroine. I'm quite familiar with discussing mental health issues in my books, and I do try to very much frame it out of the angle of everyone affected, so I have some thoughts regarding portraying anyone going through a struggle like that solely in the light of their romantic interest.
I know this is meant to be a feel-good rom-com, so we're not expecting it to be a giant dissection of the issues behind addiction.
But I do find it problematic if we're just going to skip over all of the ramifications of it and paint it as something that is a sexy bad boy trait. You can be struggling with addiction and not be a stereotypical bad boy, and you can be a bad boy without struggling with addiction. Regardless, this is a point in the red flag section straight away. This was a manic pixie dream girl on crack. She did all the emotional work in their relationship, and she used sex to heal him. He, on the other hand, was a possessive past the point of controlling him.
Telling her to stay in the hotel room and not go anywhere without him, managing her friendships with other caddies, hanging up on phone calls with her best friend, and making threats to anyone who spoke to her.
I have so many issues with the power dynamics of these two characters, because quite clearly, he's someone she admires, so she is going to do everything in her power to please him. And if this guy is that deep in addiction and like his own mental struggles, he's never going to be able to acknowledge that power imbalance. Please tell me if I'm psychoanalyzing this too much. Tessa used to write more grumpy men with strong sensibilities and a good hand on their shoulders. Lately, she writes these gender essentialistic masculine messes who the women characters have to fix. Then she slaps a cute cover on her book and calls it a rom-com. And another great point is brought up here. These kinds of covers I find so problematic, and I think this trend started with Icebreaker, where you have these super cutesy covers that kind of feel like they belong in a children's book. But then the contexts are definitely 18 plus, not young adult at all. And maybe this is me being a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I think that publishers do this intentionally. They make the covers cutesy so that they don't have to hide the book away in an 18 plus section and be able to put a book into plain sight. Because
look, Our cover is not a shirtless guy, it's just cute little drawings.
The problem isn't the cover and it's not the artists making the cover. The problem is you're trying to make a book that is not fit for the masses, marketed as if it is. Like, I'm sorry, but teens shouldn't be reading books like this. Or at the very least, it should be obvious the context of the book from the get-go. Covers used to be a glimpse of what you were going to get inside of the book. Nowadays, they're just the same thing copy-pasted 3 times. And in the meantime, we're really losing what used to make covers unique and interesting. The reason this book has so many negative reviews, I'm willing to believe, is because the cover is deceiving. But let's go into the other points that are made. The FMC Josephine, though sweet and trying really hard, was not well developed and seemed to have 2 personality traits: her type 1 diabetes and her mad horniness for the hero's ass. The author kept presenting Josephine as a down-on-her-luck diabetic. Meanwhile, she had her following a pro golfer around Florida, attending PGA games as his fan, but also rationing her insulin and letting her health insurance lapse. Do you know how much it costs to attend a PGA game? Bro, get your priorities straight. So this dingbat is prioritizing her fangirling over her life, over her literal life. Insulin is so expensive, and this book is set in America. This girl could quite literally die, but she is that head over heels over a guy she barely even knows that she is willing to risk her health. This is insane. And again, he sees no issue in this and still hires her. Bro, if she becomes absolutely psycho and threatens your life, I think you had it coming. Because the red flags at this point are a banner, and you have to actively ignore them. She
Didn't want help or charity,
but she seemed wholly unable to manage her illness herself. Also, every conflict in this book was about her diabetes. And if we had seen her managing her diabetes in a sensible way, I would have applauded this and been on board with the critique of the healthcare system in Florida. But yikes, there was nothing else to this girl other than that and her love of Wells' hairy ass. Okay, I'm reading Too Strong by Iodice, where one of the main characters has ADHD, but it is not her entire life.
she has a job, she has family, she has friends, she has other things going on in her life.
The medication plays a part in it. The way she manages ADHD and how it impacts other sides of her life also plays a part in it, but she is a whole-ass character. So the fact that I'm reading this side by side with Fangirl Down is such a stark reminder that you can have something that physically impacts a character and not make it their entire freaking life. If I actually had diabetes and was reading this book, I'd be pissed off over the fact that my entire life is narrowed down to a singular aspect of my body that I cannot control. That is so freaking annoying and such a cheap plot point. It's like,
Why build whole rounded characters when you can just give them a singular trait and run with it?
which brings us to Wells' ass. He called his own ass a juicy peach. His own ass. Out loud. There were probably over 20 throw-up-worthy mentions of his plentiful posterior, but after I hit 20, I just stopped counting. I'm gonna tell you right now, I have not seen a man whose ass was worth mentioning more than twice. Hell, more than once. And if I did, it would still be freaking weird to bring that up. Does this guy have nothing else going for him except his ass? Is that literally all that he brings to the table? Just a juicy behind? Because if it is, girl, pick someone else. You can do better than this and that, I can assure you. I understand that you're down bad, but nothing can justify this level of cringe. The bangity in this was transactional, and I didn't know if Josephine was his caddy or a sex worker at some points. The narrative oscillated wildly between
Josephine is the only female caddy in the PGA Tour, and she needs to prove she's here.
meanwhile on the other end of the spectrum,
If you get an eagle on this next hole, I will let you inside of me.
she literally said that. She is trying to prove herself as a professional woman while saying shit like this. What the heck? This is bringing men, women, and romance books back thousands and thousands of years. I just checked, over 117,000 people have read this book, and I want to hold their hands and ask them how they're doing mentally. All progress Wells made in with his game seemed to be directly tied to the sexual favors she gave him as rewards. It really was the power of nobody tell any other pro athletes that this could happen, or else we will have a horny golfer epidemic on our hands. The author did some serious word gymnastics near the end to try to convince the reader that the sex was real and that they were falling in love. But I was there, Tessa. I read at the parts where she offers him sex for performance. Since she took a 10% cut of his winnings, this was a sexual transaction. She literally was a hoe. Long time ago I was a hoe. So, did you like anything about this book? Yes, I like that he showered while she tossed his salad. Hygiene is important. At least he kept it clean. Anyway, I'm done with this author. In the past, I gave a few of the books 4 or 5 stars, but I do not know what happened to her in the last 2 or so years. I do. Smutty, steamy books became the norm, and it's more about pushing out as many books as possible so you can make as much money as possible. Especially if you're a proven author who has works in the genre. Publishers are just gonna be like,
why should we hire an indie author that we don't trust? Let's just commission this girl to write us like 10 to 15 books in the span of 2 years and just pump them out so we can ride this train while it's on a high.
And that's sadly how you end up with great authors really letting you down. If you couldn't tell by the tone of this video, I'm quite familiar with that suffering. I've lost my face, okay? It's like the author's trying to outdo herself on her explicit sex scenes and forgot that in a rom-com, you actually need some rom and some com. This had 0 of either. If we're talking about this logistically, this author published 3 books in 2024, 4 books in 2023. So she is churning out books at a pace that is genuinely insane. No wonder that they can feel quite lackluster. And you might be like,
what do you know? You've only published 3 books, and they're not even that good.
I don't care about that. I'm trying to think critically. How long does it take you to come up with book concepts and actually develop these characters and think of a timeline? She has tons of book series, which means that she needs to keep track of all of these characters in all of these universes. You can have the best team of editors and everything on your side. Actually sitting down and writing a book takes time, and writing a good book takes even further. I'm not sure if Goodreads is steering me wrong, but by the looks of it, in 2020, she published 8 books. 8 books. That is insanity. It's the fact that my brain is glitching. That doesn't even compute to me. Anyway, for this book particularly, I tried to look at good reviews of why people actually enjoyed the book. The vast majority of them admitted they were previous fangirls or had previous fangirling behavior, and therefore they saw themselves reflected in the character and were like,
this girlie is living my dream.
which in itself, I don't think is a good enough reason to give a book 5 stars, but what do I know? I hope you enjoyed this critical analysis. This is not at all what I had in mind when I sat down to make this video. I thought we were just gonna laugh about his ass. If you want to have a giggle, go watch this video instead. And shout out to SXFT Heart who commented on my last video. She's writing a really cute rom-com and I for one can't wait to read it.